The rooster had barely crowed when Daniel Carter rolled out of bed. The small farmhouse creaked with the weight of years, but it was home. A home he'd built with sweat, patience, and more love than money could ever buy. He looked over to the small bedroom across the hall where his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, was still asleep, tangled up in blankets, her teddy bear tucked under her chin. Daniel smiled. She was his reason for everything. Ever since his wife had walked away when Lily was just a baby, Daniel had worn 2 hats, mother and father, provider and nurturer. It wasn't easy. There were nights he stayed up fixing tractors for neighbors just to pay bills, mornings when he worked construction shifts on barely 2 hours of sleep, afternoons when he rushed home just to catch Lily's school play. Exhaustion was his constant companion. But he wouldn't trade fatherhood for the world. That morning, after breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast, Daniel sent Lily outside to chase butterflies while he worked on the fence at the edge of their property. The sound of a sputtering engine broke the peaceful rhythm of birdsong and hammering nails. He looked up. At the far end of the field, a red tractor lurched, coughed, and finally died. He recognized the figure climbing down, Claire Matthews, the woman who had inherited the old farm next door after her father passed away. She'd been back in town for a few weeks, but Daniel hadn't spoken to her much beyond polite greetings. She seemed different from most folks around here. Strong, capable, but with an air of distance. Daniel set down his tools and jogged over. Need some help? Claire exhaled in frustration. I've been fighting with this thing all morning. It's older than I am, and it refuses to cooperate. Daniel knelt beside the tractor, examining the engine with practiced eyes. Well, machines are a lot like people, he said with a grin. They need a little patience. And sometimes, a firm hand. For the next 2 hours, they worked together. Claire handed him wrenches while he explained each step. She listened closely, sometimes teasing him about being a tractor whisperer. Lily wandered over now and then, asking 100 questions about bolts, gears, and whether tractors could go to space. Claire laughed warmly, answering every question with surprising detail. When the engine finally roared to life, Claire's eyes lit up. She looked at Daniel not just with gratitude but with curiosity, as if she had just discovered something she hadn't been looking for. Thank you, she said softly. I was ready to give up. Daniel wiped the grease from his hands. Don't mention it. Just glad I could help. What Daniel didn't know was that Claire wasn't just back home to settle her father's affairs. She was a decorated test pilot, one of the few women flying advanced jets for a private aerospace company. Her life had been filled with speed, altitude, and adrenaline, but very little peace. She had seen the world from above, yet somehow, she felt more at home in that quiet moment beside a single father and his curious little girl than she ever had in a cockpit. Over the next few days, Claire kept showing up. Sometimes with fresh bread, sometimes with spare tools, sometimes with no excuse at all. She helped Lily with homework, teaching her about planets and constellations. She shared stories of flying above thunderclouds, of watching the sunrise from 40,000 feet. Lily was enchanted. Daniel, though grateful, tried to keep his guard up. He had been hurt before. And if Claire left as suddenly as she had arrived, it wouldn't just break his heart, it would shatter Lily's. Then came the night of the storm. Rain battered the tin roof as thunder shook the walls. Daniel and Claire sat on the porch, the air thick with the scent of wet earth. You know, Claire began, her voice low, I've spent years chasing the sky. Flying higher, faster, farther. But I never felt like I belonged anywhere. Until now. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to believe her, but fear held him back. People left. That was the one lesson life had drilled into him. The next morning, Claire was gone. Her tractor sat idle by the barn, but her house stood empty. No note, no explanation. Just silence. Days turned into weeks. Daniel buried himself in work, pretending not to notice the way Lily stared out the window each evening, waiting. He told himself it was better this way. Better to lose her now than to let Lily grow attached. But then, one bright Saturday afternoon, the sky itself seemed to split open. A deafening roar shook the ground. Daniel dropped his hammer and ran outside. Above the fields, a silver jet circled, sleek and shining like a bird of steel. It descended gracefully, kicking up a whirlwind of dust as it landed on a makeshift strip Claire must have scouted before. Lily's eyes went wide. "Daddy," she whispered, clutching his arm, "it's her." The jet door opened, and out stepped Claire, her flight suit unzipped, her hair windswept, her smile radiant. She walked straight toward them, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Daniel, I left because I was scared. I thought I didn't deserve this, deserve you, or Lily, or a life that feels real. But when I was in that cockpit, flying miles above the earth, all I could think about was this farm, this porch, and the way you looked at me when the tractor finally started. I don't want to keep flying past what I need. I want to land, here, with you." Daniel froze. His heart pounded, every fear battling against every hope. But before he could respond, Lily broke free from his arms and ran to Claire, wrapping her little arms around her waist. "Does this mean you'll be my mom?" Lily asked. Tears streamed down Claire's face as she knelt. "If you'll have me, sweetheart." Daniel's walls finally crumbled. He stepped forward, pulling them both into his arms. For the first time in years, he let himself believe in love again. The wedding was small. Neighbors, family, and the sound of laughter echoing across the fields. Claire traded her flight suit for a simple white dress, Daniel for a clean shirt and a nervous smile. When they exchanged vows, even the sky seemed to pause. Claire never stopped flying, but now every takeoff was followed by a landing back home, to Daniel, to Lily, to the family she had never dared to dream of. And Daniel learned that sometimes, the smallest act of kindness, fixing a neighbor's tractor, can rewrite the course of your life. Because kindness plants seeds, and love makes them bloom in the most unexpected places.